So the three things I picked from the IDEO design kit were one, to define your audience, two, to ask the 5 whys, and then the third was the use of body language. The reason I picked these was a combination between they were things that I've personally been taught and found to be most useful, and also combined with things that I thought could be very useful because I haven't used them personally, but I've seen them applied and they were very helpful. In terms of defining your audience, that's a big thing, especially with the other video about the MRI and how kids were scared to go in it. The MRI that was designed, it's great for adults because it's a scary test, but there's no way to really get around that. But for kids, you can make it seem like it's a rocket ship or it's a pirate ship, and fun ways to get around it so they're not so much thinking about it. So that was a big thing the designer thought about his audience in terms of the kids, and designed a slightly different product that was the same machine, did everything the same, just looked different. And that was just a cost-effective solution to make them more comfortable. So making sure you define your audience, it may not be the same across the board. The MRI is a great example because a vast majority of the population can just deal with a normal white or gray MRI that's going to look one way. But when you're dealing with children, you're going to want to change that to make them more comfortable with the product and make sure that they can use it just as effectively as any adult. Because that's the end game, is to get most people tested so you make sure they don't have any bad conditions. The second one I picked was the 5 whys. This is something that I haven't done personally, but I've seen it used and be effective. So the purpose behind the 5 whys is to just ask a question and then ask why 5 times. So you might ask someone, say you were talking to a farmer, it was one of the examples given. So you'd ask him, how was your harvest this year? And they'd give you an answer, and you'd ask why. And they might say, well, because the crops were kind of dried out. You'd ask them why. Well, maybe this section's in a drought. Well, why is it in a drought? Well, because we have poor water management in our area. Well, why is that? Well, because the city only cares about certain issues. Water management isn't one of them. Well, why is that? They're either too small to focus on issues that affect a small amount of the population, or they just don't care about the water because they're not environmentally friendly. That's just kind of their belief. So it just kind of depends on things like that. When you're dealing with the 5 whys, you just want to, because it's easy to give a short answer. You could say, oh, why don't your crops do well? Oh, we had a bad growing season. Well, that's just really generic. There's no reason behind that. So when you're doing that, just getting to the real root of the problem. So instead of just giving the direct what caused this, you're getting to the root cause that you can actually go and fix. So if you just change the thing that says, oh, you had a bad harvest, you can do things to change that, but until you go to the root, which in the example I made was the city councilors or the city not caring about the issue, you got to go to the root of the problem if you really want to fix it. And the last one, number one biggest thing that people don't account for is body language. There's a lot of things that go into body language. The first thing that my biggest pet peeve is people who don't give a proper handshake, especially when you're working in any type of business setting or any type of formal setting, even informal. If you're just greeting one of your friends, a proper handshake is really important. There's nothing worse than getting an improper handshake, especially when you're in a really formal setting. If you're looking for a job, if you're talking to someone that's above you, if you want to show respect, I do personally feel a little bit disrespected if someone gives me a really bad handshake. Not every handshake is going to be perfect, but it's something that you should try because that's a big part of body language. Because when you handshake, you have to have your grip right, you have to have the strength of your grip right, you have to have your body posture right, you have to be looking people in the eyes. It's just a great combination of body language that can kind of show how well people use it. The other big thing is body language on the phone. It's not something people think about. But for instance, I'm joining the Air National Guard, so when I was talking to my recruiter today, I was in bed when he called, but I made sure before I answered, I got out of bed, I stood up, I got into a position that if I was talking to someone in person, I was standing up straight, I was respectful. I wasn't in my pajamas, I was in jeans and this jacket. So I made sure I was presentable because that goes a long way, especially for someone working in the restaurant industry. They even say if you're on the phone, they can hear you roll your eyes through the phone because that's a real thing. People can tell, even though they can't see you, what your body language is like, and when your body language is poor, the whole meeting's gonna go poor. If someone walks into a meeting, they're slunched over, they're not paying attention to what's going on, they're just kind of lollygagging around, there's no sense of urgency, people aren't gonna like that. But if you're in a meeting, you don't have to be overly assertive about it, but you should make it known that you're paying attention. Examples given were use head nods, confirming phrases, just looking presentable, so making sure you're not rolling in hungover from the weekend or something. You want to make sure that you're in proper shape to be doing whatever it is your task is. If you're going to be working on a farm, you shouldn't be showing up in a suit. If you're working somewhere on State Street in Boston, you shouldn't be showing up in jeans and t-shirt. I do think that your posture, body language, the way you present yourself, it's all wrapped together. And that's one of the biggest things is just presenting yourself well, because you get so much farther with a good handshake, making sure you're presentable and knowing a little bit about the topic than someone who's just not putting their effort in, especially when you combine these three things together. Defining your audience, so to make sure that say you were looking for a job, you're going to go into the job asking exactly what's going on. They might ask you the 5 whys. Know why if they just ask what your biggest weakness is, you should know exactly why that is, and maybe that's something you correct, or maybe it's something that helps you even be a better person. And especially your body language, just a good skill, no matter where you are. If it's a formal setting, if you're meeting one of your friend's parents for the first time, if you're trying to meet a significant other, if you're going out to a meeting, if you're looking for a job, especially just any situations like that, they're very important. And I don't want to ramble on too long, but those were the three I picked, and that's why I think they were important.